Good morning. Yes, I'm continuing from yesterday, and I want to just point out to you one further truth, and I want you to think about it. When people looked at the scriptures, they began to wonder whether or not there were codes written into the scriptures. See, the Jewish people themselves had a love of language, and very often different kings would use a Jewish scribe in their court to write to another kingdom or another leader. And because that person as well had Jewish scribes in their court, the Jewish people would write in Hebrew, yes, but they would also write in code to each other, so that if the message was intercepted, the people would not be able to understand what is written. And one of the codes they used was the equidistant code. In other words, they would write the scriptures, but every, say, 12th or 14th or 15th letter, if you took those letters out, you would see that there was a message underlying what was being written. And they were very clever codes, and they were sent one to another. People began to wonder whether there were codes written into the scriptures. And as they began to look at them, they found something strange. They found, for instance, when they looked at the book of Genesis, they came to a certain letter, and then they jumped forward an equal number of letters, then an equal number of letters, then an equal number of letters, and they found written at the very beginning of Genesis the word Torah, which is what we're talking about. The 5 books of Moses, the Torah. It is written there into the scriptures in equidistant letters in the script. Now, I'm sure in a sense that when Moses had this written or wrote it himself, he did not realize that this was being written into the scriptures. So they thought, well, it's probably just a coincidence. So then they looked at the book of Exodus, and they found at the beginning of the book of Exodus, using the same code, they found the same word, Torah, T-O-R-A-H, written into the very beginning of the book of Exodus. So that must be a coincidence. So they thought, well, let's look at the other books. And they looked first of all at Leviticus, but they couldn't really find anything. Then they looked at the book of Numbers. And amazingly, they found that the word Torah was there, but written backwards. In other words, it started with a H and not a T, and it was written backwards. So then they looked at the book of Deuteronomy, and they found that the same word was written there, again written backwards. Instead of T-O-R-A-H, it was written right the way backwards. So you got the first 2 books almost written the right way, and the last 2 books written backwards. And in the middle of these books was the book of Leviticus. So they said, well, if one is pointing forward and the others are pointing backwards, what's written in the book of Leviticus? And amazingly, they found that in the book of Leviticus, following the same code, they had simply the name of God, Yahweh, written there into the book. As if Genesis and Exodus are pointing forward, and Numbers and Deuteronomy are pointing backwards, pointing to this name right in the center of Leviticus. Now, did the scribes of Moses' own day actually deliberately write those codes in? I don't think they did. I think that was God saying to us quite simply, look, I am in charge of this writing. I know what is being written. These are books that you can trust, and these are words that you can trust. Now let's take this one step further. Recently, people have looked at the whole of the Old Testament to see if the same type of rules apply and the same type of codes can be found. And they have found over and over again these different words being given to them in sequence, the names of kings, the names of David's ancestors, all written in the correct sequence by using these particular codes. But this is the interesting thing. We could never have found those words, never have found them, without our present computer abilities. In other words, without our computers, we couldn't have examined the text in such detail. And what do I feel about this? Well, I'm feeling that God knew, that towards the end times, after thousands of years, people would actually doubt whether these books were actually written for our benefit, whether we could trust them. And he wrote into the very text different instructions and different words and different names, which we could only find out in our generation with our computers, so that we in our age could say to ourselves, these words must truly have been written and given to us by God's inspiration, because these names are written in this way. He wanted to show me, and he wants to show you, that these are not just books. These is truly his word to us throughout the generations in which we live. Amen.